really kind of fluid.
The only thing that sorry.
That's all right. Why don't we go ahead and get started? Welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Power Up webinar. Tonight we have Eric Hill, the Project Echelon Race Director, and Mike Weiss, Gateway Cup Race Promoter, to talk about esports racing, specifically the ongoing Echelon Racing League, which will feature virtual versions of many of the PRT races, including Gateway Cup. They're going to talk about the series a little bit and kind of talk about, for those of you who aren't familiar with RGT, which is the platform they're using, talk about the differences in racing Zwift and racing RGT. Eric, Mike?
Awesome. And so I'm going to pull up my screen here so you guys can see what I'm seeing and what Mike and I are talking about. But if you haven't had the opportunity to check out the Echelon Racing League, you can go to echelonracingleague.com and you can see exactly what I'm seeing. So I figured rather than putting together a PowerPoint to navigate the conversation, why not use the medium and the tool that you would use to learn about it yourselves, and just show you how to navigate it, what you can all find here, and how you can register to be a part of it. But thank you guys for having me, and I'm really excited to have Mike joining us too, because Mike's a part of it all, and so he brings a totally different lens and perspective from this than I do. So I'm really curious to hear his side of the story too. Mike, I don't know if you have anything to help kick us off.
No, well, I think what you're doing with this whole project, which I think it's a little bit different than what Zwift is doing, in that, you know, for better or for worse, Zwift's limitation is, you know, the worlds that they've invested in, and it doesn't lend, you know, it's great to call something the virtual Tour de France, and then you're racing somewhere completely different. Mm-hmm. I think what RGT and what you're trying to do is connect, obviously real courses to that whole context, but it's what it allows us to do is then tap into those audiences that each race has. And the thing about the PRT is that it's really broad. I mean, the United States is so much bigger than Europe. We always talk about how some races really are not in competition with each other, should they ever have a conflicting date. And so this is going to allow the American audience and amateur racers and non-racers to have, you know, to kind of get a taste of domestic American racing. And that's the opportunity.
So maybe I'll go to the genesis story where this whole concept came from, and maybe that'll give a little bit of insight to what Mike was just talking about. But as Jim alluded to earlier, I'm the director of the Project Echelon Racing team. You know, we are like Gateway Devo in that we're a domestic elite team. We race the U.S. circuit. We get invited to some UCI level events, and I get to do some international racing as well. But we're also a veterans nonprofit organization. So we have a mission to educate, equip, and empower veterans through physical activity. This year alone, we've served over 200 veterans, donated over $30,000, and a lot of equipment to veterans in need, helping them find endurance sport as a means to help them through PTSD, traumatic brain injury, suicide, and addiction. And so that mission is what we carry with us when we travel the country to these races. And when the calendar was basically put to a halt in March, you know, one, we lost our ability to connect with our teammates through racing, but two, we also lost the opportunity to share our mission. And so we came up with the idea of collaborating with teams from around the country and race promoters from around the country to host the races virtually. And so we started with the Redlands Bicycle Classic. Again, we had to race, we raced on Zwift for this. We raced the London course to try to replicate Sunset Loop. And then I think we raced like the volcano loop to try to replicate. I'm blanking on the major climb at Redlands, but their major climbing stage at Redlands. And so we did that, and then we followed it up with Gila. Then we followed it up with Joe Martin Stage Race. By the time we got to Joe Martin Stage Race, we were getting about 90,000 to 100,000 people tuning in to watch these events, which means that teams, sponsors, race promoters, and then for me, most importantly, the mission that we carry for our veterans nonprofit is getting shared with all of these stakeholders that we were otherwise not reaching. We also found that people like Cycling News and Velo News were interested in this new realm of cycling, and they started covering it more because names that they recognized from Elevate or Rally or even Legion or Project Echelon or Gateway were participating. And so it was their traditional coverage that they were able to do, but in the virtual world. And then it's no secret that a month later, Zwift came out and did the virtual Tour de France. And that was a huge success on their end. So we had people come back to us and say, what you've done has created opportunities for our teams and for our stakeholders that we never thought existed. We've reached people that we've never reached before. And we even had one team say, if you hadn't put those races on, we would have lost our sponsor. We would have folded. So thank you, because you saved our team. And so we decided we needed to continue this work. And from that came the Echelon Racing League. And like Mike said, we're working with 8 different PRT race promoters from around the country to put on events in their name on their courses. So the thing that that's different between RGT and Zwift is that in RGT, I can create my course in Strava Maps or map my ride and take that GXP or that .fit file and send it to them, and they replicate the course. Elevation for elevation, turn for turn, you ride the real course in a virtual setting. It has really great drafting algorithms as well, and there's a lot of other customizations that seem to really enhance the virtual racing experience for us. So now we're to a place where we have an established league. We have not only professional races, but we have amateur and community races. We have a community series that spans the entire 8 weekends of the professional league as well. The community races, the amateur races, always take place the week before the professional races, and we invite the top 10 finishers from the Cat 1 field to come and race the pro field the subsequent week. So it's a really cool opportunity for people to race into the league and have the opportunity to join us there. We have our own scoring system, so you can compete against your fellow Cat 4 or Cat 5 riders, which is wonderful and exciting as well. And again, we get to represent these wonderful and amazing race promoters from around the country that put their heart and soul into making sure our sport is successful and continues to grow. And we get to give back to them and to their supporters and their communities as well. And then behind it, we have some different things that we've done as well, including merchandising. So we're trying to get teams and their names and their logos and their brands out there. So we created some online stores so you can support your favorite team from the league, which is exciting. This is our Instagram page. And then I'm just going to play this brief video for you. You'll recognize the voice. It's Brad Soner. But we have a full broadcast production team.
Field for the final stage of the Echelon Racing League weekend, the Paso dello Stelvio, climbing point to point up to the top of the legendary climb. 3 of the 6 women representing the United States at the upcoming Esports World Championships represented in this race, including the 2 riders that found themselves on the front, with Elena O'Mara distancing Krista Doble-Hickok on the final switchback up to the top of the Paso Stelvio. So O'Mara finally gets the win that she had been hunting for all weekend after 2 top 10 finishes on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah, my coach Dan Smith, he's been able to kind of like, monitor what I'm doing and cater it towards these events. So he's been really great about prepping me. Prior to racing bikes, I ran, so I didn't really know what workouts looked like on bikes. So I was able to get a coach, and that's really helped me kind of determine what to do and how to prep for events like this.
Not the last time we're going to see that battle between Elena O'Mara and Krista Doble-Hickok, as that rivalry will heat up, I'm sure, through the Esports World Championships. Stephanie Sidlick taking third place with Jacqueline Godby in fourth, and Christy Tracy also on that Esports Worlds team, taking a fifth place finish on the final day of the Echelon Racing League Real Road Stage Race Weekend.
So we try to provide a professional experience, a professional viewing experience as well. We live stream our amateur races and have commentators for those too. And so we're really trying to use the league as a means to grow just the cycling community in general, to make it more healthy, more sustainable, more scalable for everybody. And so that's the basis, that's the genesis story. And I've talked for a long time, and I need to stop. So I'm gonna let somebody else pitch in or ask some questions here. But that's how we got started. So where should we go next, Mike? What should we talk about next?
Why don't you, I think just based on popularity, I think most people can figure out how to go to Zwift and buy create an account and purchase a membership and then start signing up for events. But it is different with RGT. So maybe you could walk people through how to join the league and how to sign up.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. So let me talk about signing up first. And there's no cost. It's 100% free to sign up for the league. And one of the beautiful things about RGT is that their basic membership is free as well. They do have a premium membership that gives you access to additional workouts, some additional courses, and the ability to create group rides that you can do at any time with less than 5 riders. The basic membership, if you create your own group ride, you can do that, but you have to have at least 5 riders join you. So it really has removed the barrier to entry. You're not paying $12 a month, $14 a month for a product. It's free at the basic level, and you can use the basic membership to race as well. Sorry, I went to the wrong page here. So to register as for the amateur league, if you go to races and you go to amateur race series, you can come down, you can join our mailing list so you can get all of the information. We also share discounts from our partners at Saris, Hyperice, Biomoto. USA Cycling has some benefits out there as well for discounted memberships for people who join our mailing list. But you can see the calendar for all of the races that we're doing across the 8 race series. This coming one, we have a 1-day race with the Tour de Gila. They'll be racing the Gila Monster Road Race. Middle December, we have Bucks County Classic and the Armed Forces. End of December, we have Gateway Cup, and we'll be racing La Montaña, the Hill, and Benton Park. We have 1 day at Redlands, 1 day at Joe Martin, 1 day at Green Mountain, and then we're going to do 2 days of racing at Tour of America's Dairyland. And so to register for those races, you just come here and go to Amateur Series and simply fill out this form, just asking for your name, email address, gender. And then the big one is asking what category you believe you should be a part of. And so we've came up with our own category system. We actually collaborated with USA Cycling, Cycling Australia, the British Cycling Federation, and the German Cycling Federation to develop this. We tried to make it as platform agnostic as possible, and something that other international governing bodies would be willing to adapt. USA Cycling in probably the next year is going to be recognizing e-cycling or esports racing as its own discipline that they support. And so as such, they have to come up with governance. They had to come up with a category system. And so we were privileged enough to be a part of those conversations and help support that process. So for our category system, we have categories 1 through 4. And we came up with 3 ways that you could determine what category you should start in. So if you're racing regularly and finishing within the top 10% of an RGT race, you should be a Cat 1, so on and so forth. You can read that. If you're category A in Zwift, you should be a Cat 1 and in our events, category B, a Cat 2, C, 3, D, 4. Or if you don't race frequently, but you know what your watts per kilogram is for your 20-minute power, you can select your category based on that. We have people from all over the country or all over the world racing. Actually, we have, I think, just as many European riders competing in our amateur league as we do US-based riders, which is quite exciting to see. And then you just select the races that you would like to be a part of. So this is pretty simple to get involved, and you'll get maybe 1 email a week from me just updating you about upcoming events, remembering to register, or taking advantage of some of the benefits that we have for our participants. But on the app side of things, RGT has a mobile app that you would download on your device. And then they have what's called a screen app. And so what you do, maybe oh no, I can't do that. You connect your mobile device to your screen device. And it's very intuitive. There's a whole loading process that walks you through it. It'll say, there's a code on your phone app, please enter that code. And so you enter that in, and then it'll ask you, do you want to ride magic roads? Do you want to ride real roads? Do you want to do a race? And you just walk through and select your process. And very similarly to like in Zwift, you can create your own avatar. You get to select where you ride. You can create group rides. Like I said, it's a pretty intuitive process once you've downloaded the app and you start clicking around and playing with it.
With the amateur schedule, and you said the amateur races are going to be held a week prior to the pro schedule, which is here. So, yeah, that was one thing where I was confused. I just learned that tonight.
So
that means
this is the amateur schedule right here.
Okay.
The pro schedule is different. So you'll see that. It's coming. There we go. My computer's freezing on me. Here we are. So you'll see that while the amateurs race, the Gateway Cup races December 26th and 27th, the pros will race them January 2nd and 3rd. And again, the reason we have those amateur races going before the pro races is so that folks that place in the top 10 in the amateur races have the opportunity, they get selected for wild card spots to race alongside the pros in the pro league. So yeah, it's the first weekend went extremely well. We had over 200 amateur registrants for the races. It was wonderful. Actually, one of the amateurs that qualified for the pro race from the amateur league ended up 5th in the overall in the pro race weekend, which was really wonderful and cool to see. And I think we've actually encouraged his team enough to try and enter their team as a wild card team for the upcoming Tour of the Gila. And so they're a team based out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we're hoping that we'll see them as a part of the virtual Tour of the Gila as well. But it's really been a unique thing to see, again, all of these different stakeholders coming together. I think the first time I held or the first time I've ever been a part of a meeting where athletes, team directors, USA Cycling, race promoters, and then also cycling media were all on a call or all in the same room at the same time. The first time that has ever happened in my 15 years in the sport was for this. Otherwise, you don't bring athletes to a UCI team directors meeting. Like, they're not even allowed in the doors. Right? It's your team director gets in, you sit down, you listen to the UCI commissaire talk, take your notes, you go back and you report out to the team. But all those things happen behind closed doors. And so we tried to pull back the layers on that, make this as transparent as possible, and try to, bridge some gaps and get people engaged in these conversations in a different way, and let everybody have a voice with it.
Eric, do the amateurs have to go through the same, for lack of a better term, certification process in terms of like their weight?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm going to go to our Bible, and I'll talk about that verification process and the governance a little bit. The short answer to your question is, at this time, the answer is no. We don't require that people submit weigh-in videos and submit verification power data files for the amateur races at this time. We know that RGT is working diligently to actually create a virtual passport, very similar to like World Tour athletes or UCI registered athletes have a biological passport. They're working to create a digital passport. And so they'll be able to see irregularities in weight and performance and certain percentage shifts in their data will raise a red flag. And you'll have to be able to present your digital passport in order to get admitted into certain levels of races. So they'll have, just like the UCI has, they have their HC or their all category races. They have their 1.2s, their 2.2s. The same thing would exist here, where, the Echelon Racing League would be an all category league where you would have to have a certified digital passport in order to be able to participate in this league. Now, if I went ahead and said I wanted to organize a Wednesday night race with my buddies, that would be a 2.1 race, and there would be no verification required to do that. So at the amateur level right now, we don't require that, but we do want them to be aware of the level of governance that we have in place for the professional races. And we want them to be honest, and we want them to be diligent in making sure that their information is indeed accurate. For our professional races, they have to submit within 24 hours of the start of the race. They have to submit a calibration video for their power device. So whether that is Bluetooth enabled power meter or a smart trainer, they have to submit a verification video of their calibration process. So a spin down process or what have you, showing us that their power meter or their power source is indeed calibrated. They also need to submit within 24 hours of the start of the race a weigh-in video. And the way those weigh-in videos are done is they have to get some sort of weighted item that has a labeled weight on it. So whether it's a lifting weight, whether it's a can of green beans, they need to bring that with them. They have to take a video with a newspaper or something that's dated next to their scale, so I can see that it's indeed November 28th that they're taking this video. They have to weigh that item, pull the item off. They have to weigh themselves, step off, and then they have to weigh themselves again while holding that item. And all of those pieces of data need to match and be verified with one another. And they have to submit that video, and they also have to make it public on YouTube so anybody else could see that. We require heart rate monitors as well. And then for our top 5 finishers on every single stage, they're required to submit us their best 5-minute and best 20-minute power files from a on the road in real life ride from within the last 6 months. So we want to be able to see that these were replicable numbers out on the road, not just on a trainer. And so that is our data verification process with our athletes in the league. And like I said, right now for the amateur side of things, we want them to know that this is a thing and that governance exists, and that altering numbers for the fun of it isn't very fun for anybody else but you. And that if they were to get the opportunity to race up, they would be held to these same standards. If I keep going in the Bible, there's some other interesting information in here. We do have a points breakdown. So for stage races like the Tour of the Gila, which is coming up, it'll be run as a traditional stage race. It'll be time-based. You have to finish every single day in order to race the next day. The person with the lowest cumulative time will win the overall. But we also have Omnium weekends as well. So this past weekend we did the RGT Omnium race, and so there were points per stage that were awarded. And for our stage races, there's points awarded for the GC overall. And all of these points are aggregated across the entire series. So across the entire series, we will have a GC overall champion, we'll have a team champion, and then we'll have a sprint or points champion as well. And so there's $10,000 that we're paying out for both men and women, and we have equal payout. And one of the things that we're really proud of is the fact that throughout the league, there's equity for both our men and women. They get the same amount of broadcast time. They race the same distances. We flip-flop start times so that the men always don't start first or the women don't always start first, because we know there's optimal viewing times for our viewers. And so we want our women to have equal access as our men. And the virtual racing has really allowed for us to tend to that need at a high level and not have to make any sacrifices.
Could you, one of the things that's not posted there is the format for the amateur racing do they all, you register as your category or however your metric, and then is there a standard start time across all of the dates?
Yeah. That's a great question. The standard start time is 1400 Eastern. So that is when, and it says down here in the lower right, left-hand corner, when you register, it says on the registration form as well. But we do have standard start times. For this upcoming race, for the Tour of the Gila race, with the broadcast and wanting to broadcast the amateur events to the best that we can, and knowing they're doing the Gila Monster, so there's going to be bodies all over the road. We altered the start times a little bit so that we could give everybody some love and a little bit of proper coverage. But as soon as people register, they get an email from me verifying those start times, so that they're up to date and they can get it on their calendar. And but in general, 1400 Eastern is your standard start time for our races.
And everybody will have their own race, where the only riders that will be visible are going to be the ones in their field?
Correct. Yep. Okay. And then when we do our amateur broadcast, it's a quadrant screen. So you can see 4 different races happening at once, and then the commentators will bounce back and forth between the races and what they're announcing on.
And then
So
for the criteriums, are they're all going to be the same distance and time?
Yeah, I mean, so we are actually working with Bucks County and Armed Forces, because those are traditionally really, I mean, those are 100K crits. They're long crits. And so they actually requested that that we increase the length of those races to be closer to an hour and a half. In general, we would make our crit courses right around 55 minutes to an hour is what we try to shoot for. But again, our vision is for these events to be as much have as much input from our in real life race promoters as possible. These are your events. We're representing you. And so, Mike, if you said you wanted these guys racing 3 hours around Benton Park, they can race 3 hours around Benton Park, which I would do, by the way. I would love for that to be the case, because that's my kind of crit. It's like, just wear everybody down and then start racing. That's what I want to do.
So, Mike, just for everybody else's benefit, which 2 courses are planned right now?
We thought that something with elevation would be more interesting than a pancake flat four corner crit. So assuming that RGT is going to make the Giro feel like the Giro, where, you know, downhill finish, you know, set up for the, you know, turn 3 is important. We thought the Giro made sense. And then Benton Park, because it's such an interesting and unusual criteria course. And then the thing about RGT, which is interesting to me, and maybe Eric can talk about this, is the algorithm for cornering, because that's much different than Zwift.
Yeah, you talked about corner 3 on the hill. Well, not only because it's a downhill finish, but because it goes from three cars wide to 1 car wide into that third straightaway, you know. And so one of the things that RGT, I said they, you know, corner for corner, elevation for elevation, they match that. But one of the things they also do is match the road width. And so, for example, when we raced the Paterberg course for the RGT event, you had to fight to get to the front of the race to get into the Paterberg in the top 3, or you were going to get shot out the back, because position actually mattered. The algorithm for cornering and drafting knows where you are in the group, and it slows you down appropriately. So as you're racing in RGT, you'll be able to see in the upper left-hand corner of your screen that your number will go red. And that means that you're pedaling, but no power is being distributed to your avatar, because there's either virtually braking for you or virtually slowing down based on your poor positioning in the group. And so it's not just an FTP test like we see a lot of Zwift races turning into. There's a huge element to understanding proper race tactics and position in the RGT platform. And position matters going into corners, going into narrow roads, going into descents, just as much as it would in real life.
And drafting as well, you can go over that with the fact that you can actually get away and you can actually reattach yourself to the group. Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever raced on Zwift, you know that a breakaway most never succeeds. It may be a highly reduced group, but I wouldn't consider that a breakaway. In our first race of the Pro Series, we raced the Borrego Springs Circuit course in California, mostly pan flat 4-corner course, and it turned into a bunch sprint for both the men and the women. The next day was the Paterberg. The Paterberg for the men resulted in 5 men originally going up the road. 2 of them were dropped by their companions and went back to the peloton, and 3 of them stayed away to the finish. And for the women, 4 women went up the road and stayed up the road. But they had to fight that gap. That gap came down to 14 seconds at one point, and they're able to pull it back out to 43, I think, by the time they finished, which is really cool to see. And then the Stelvio was just a brutal day. I think a lot of people cried themselves to bed that night because we just started at the base of the Stelvio straight into 9% and I think I took 14th in that stage and did 372 for 48 minutes, which coming off of a 3-week break was pretty happy with that. So that was an extremely brutal day. But the race dynamics really do come into play. So it keeps your mind really active. There's actually going to be an article coming up tomorrow in both Velo News and Cycling News about some of our riders who are in the league but are going to be representing Team USA in the World Championships and the Zwift World Championships coming up. And so they do a compare and contrast between the 2 platforms and how they're using the Echelon Racing League to prepare for World Championships, but how RGT is different from that of Zwift and what they like about it, what they don't like about it. They do a really nice job of trying to be unbiased and giving some really good feedback. So you should check those articles out.
What would, going back to that comment, I mean, what would you say are the cons to it relative to Zwift?
Honestly, my only con to it is that the community is not as well established yet. You jump in onto Zwift and there's 14,000 people riding on it, and so that's motivating to see, right? Like for me, I could stare at a brick wall in my basement and ride 3 hours and think nothing of it, but that's not everybody. Some people just like that opportunity to be out there and see that other people are fighting the same fight they're fighting and that they're loving the sport, and like that's a feel good story that they like to be a part of, and that's awesome. And so Zwift has a really strong community. They've been around for I think 8 years now, 7 years, something like that. RGT is just over a year old. So today when I was riding Mount Ventoux on RGT, there were 85 people on the course. So the community isn't as big yet, and I say yet because I think it'll certainly get there. But people, it's no secret, struggle with change, and if they've been a part of one community for a long time, it's hard to step away and try something new. But hopefully, discussions like this or exposure via the Echelon Racing League will encourage people to give it a try. And if I'm quite honest, I still use both platforms. There are certain things that I like using Zwift for. I did a race on Zwift the other night. Frank Cundiff, who is co-owner of the Echelon Racing League with me, he still races on Zwift. His girlfriend is going to be representing the U.S. in Zwift World Championships, and so we still use both platforms. We just really think that RGT is, in our opinion, a superior platform for racing in replicating in real life efforts. Zwift is a different discipline in my opinion, and it more similarly replicates a game. There's gaming aspects, there's power-ups, there's those types of things that play into it, and those don't exist in RGT. So we're trying to replicate in real life races for in real life racers, and RGT is our platform of choice to do that.
Eric, are there fees for the amateurs to enter these races?
Nope. It is 100% free. Our big thing, and actually it's RGT's mission as well. Their mission is accessibility, realism, and I should know the third one. but it can't. But accessibility and realism are two of their three statements that they make in their mission. And for us, it was about accessibility and exposure for all in growth for the sport. And so we didn't want to put any entry fees on there. One of the things that we will be doing is putting on some community fondo type rides. So, for example, I was just talking with Jack Brennan. He's the director of the Tour of the Gila, and he wants to do a fondo ride in mid-February, and we'll be using it as like a fundraiser opportunity for the Tour of the Gila and for the Project Echelon Veterans nonprofit. And so we'll split the proceeds of that 50-50. There'll be a $10 admission to get in, and Jack is going to offer all participants discounted registration to either the Tour of the Gila race or to the Tour of the Gila Fondo for this coming year, as a thank you for participating in those events. So there will be some events that have a cost, but the cost is for a good cause.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
So how, I presume that racing in real life does not translate other than fitness to racing on RGT.
Yeah.
So, and the way you learn in real life is you go do training races, because there you can screw up and, not feel like you're out $40 or,
Yeah. Yep.
So are there training races on RGT or in Echelon's Racing League?
So they do have, just like in Zwift, when you go to the companion app in Zwift, when you go to the mobile app on RGT, there's a tab that says races. And if you go there, you can see all of the community races that are available throughout the I think it's 10 days out. And you can register yourself for those. Yes. So there are multiple races a day, every day that you can participate in.
Jim, do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, Power Up is going to put on a couple of training races. And there'll be more information on our website and on social media. But our target dates are December 1st and December 15th. And if the Gateway Cup courses are available at that time and we're allowed to use those, we will use those. If they aren't available, we'll select another course.
I've got the Tuesday night course on there too.
That'd be okay. That may be an option too, if the Gateway Cup courses aren't available at that time. That'd be good, Chris.
Chris, is it, well, I'll get in touch with you later about being able to share that.
I think by the 15th, we'll have the Gateway Cup courses.
Okay.
December 1st would be a push for us because we'll be preparing for the December 4th to 6th Tour of the Gila races.
Yeah, that's a good question though. I mean, will the courses be available for public use or just sort of a one-time?
No, they absolutely are. So the way it works is you get a Magic Roads course code, and anybody that's registered for the Tour of the Gila, for example, I have sent out that course code so they could go and recon that course at any time leading into the race. And so we try to make those available about 2 weeks in advance to the scheduled races. So that would be right in line with your December 15th date to have those Gateway courses available to you. But the nice thing is that even after the event, those codes will still work. So you can still go back and race Benton Park, whenever you would like. One of the things I'm really excited about as a team director is, and Jim, like I can see, Gateway benefiting from this, is the ability to go in, create a quick Strava map for the last 20K of stage 2 of the Joe Martin stage race, which finishes up on top of Mount Sequoia. And so anybody that's done that race, like, the race is brutal. It gets split there. Positioning matters there. You need to know the corners. You need to know the hills that are coming up. If you don't, you're just not going to be successful in that stage. So the ability to go and create those courses ahead of time and have our riders, from the comfort of their homes, 2 weeks in advance, hey, we're going to go and we're going to ride the last 20K of this course a couple times together. We're going to take note of corners, because again, corner for corner, elevation for elevation, the courses in RGT are true to real life. So we can take note of those corners and where they come relative to a hill. We can take note of the pitches of those hills, and hey, like 10K out, it doesn't show up on the roadmap, but there's a really steep kicker for 150 meters that's gonna hurt. You need to be ready for that. And so I think it really presents a unique opportunity for us to use it as a tool at a really high level, to prepare our teams for events too.
I would agree.
Just gave away my
That's
golden
right.
ticket. Oh man,
That's right.
Chris can thank me later.
What else you guys got? This has been great, Eric. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Mike, thank you. I mean, it's been really good.
I hope I'm not rambling. I hope that we're sharing some valuable information.
Just to clarify, all races start at the same time on the same course, but they're actually separate races, right?
They are separate. Yeah, you will only see the people in your category.
Magic of the internet. Okay.
Yeah, they all have so every race has its own server. So they're all on separate servers.
Got it.
Yep.
Have you seen a lot of engagement from the athlete population for each of these events? Like, I mean, I think like the target audience is the audience we have, and so it might be. I would imagine that all of the different race promoters would be willing to give you their email contact database. So you could try to get Gateway Cup people that are crit guys to try Redland, and sort of build that community.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you right now, for this upcoming weekend, we have 219 registrants for the Tour of the Gila races, and 70% of those are from the U.S. 20% of those are from Europe, and then the rest are from other Canada, Malaysia, Africa. Got a couple Australias in here, and so yeah, our goal is to reach your user base, to reach your clientele, and to keep them excited, keep them motivated, keep the Gateway Cups or whatever your race is at the forefront, and keep them excited about these events that are really staples in their community. And I know that for me, Gateway Cup is always teetering. I coach high school cross country, so it's always teetering like on what my fitness and readiness levels are for those races, because I've transitioned to running and coaching at that point in my season. But I always make the trip because it's just as much about hanging out in St. Louis with my friends, going to some of the different breweries, celebrating a successful season, as it is about enjoying some awesome racing. So for me, that's just a staple of the year, and it felt really weird not to be there this year. And so if I could be a part of it in some way, albeit virtually, I think that gives a little bit of normalcy to my daily life that I would appreciate.
I think it was interesting when Zwift introduced Crit City.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing some of those, and it's you wonder, are you going to have a field or not? Like, is it, what, I mean, I think the field size is typically kind of like a regional crit, 30, 40 riders.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why we didn't want to do, we could have easily made a race every weekend. But we wanted it to be something that was different from Zwift and what their efforts are. But that was also unique. It had its own feel to it. It got people excited. And if, the best way to get people excited is to give them something they love and then make them wait for the next one.
Well, as an example, you were talking about, differences between the two platforms. And, obviously in Zwift, if you're doing a crit, the first minute or 2 minutes of a Zwift crit is
bonkers.
Yeah, you go, you start at 400 watts and you stay there until you get down to your category.
Yeah. You almost always set like your new 2-minute power at the beginning of a race. Like, oh my god,
it's a serious race.
I actually think that brings up a good point in that I think I know there are certain road riders that have, they've tried Zwift and it's like, no, this isn't anywhere close to being real.
Yeah.
And, I'm just ignoring the esports component of it. That is in fact going a separate discipline. I think I think the better you can communicate the difference of RGT and that it races more like the road.
Yeah.
I think the easier it would be to attract, the road riders.
Yeah. Yeah. Jim, this will be a litmus test that maybe only you will understand, but it is real enough that I have got George Simpson excited about it and looking forward to racing some of the upcoming races in December. Now, for those of you that don't know George Simpson, you will not find him on social media because he does not use it. And he is the most, down to earth, dialed in, very professional athlete that you may ever meet. He took third at US TT Championships last year. Just an extremely talented young man. But virtual racing, there's no way in heck I thought I would ever get him to do it. And I was able to flip the switch on this because it was real enough for him, and he saw some value in it, and opportunity to use tools like Magic Roads to pre-ride TT courses and do the little things that make him a really good rider, to do those things in a different way. So I agree, Jim. Like, it's really important that people understand that their major goal is realism, and they've done a pretty good job of it. They know they have areas to grow and improve, but they've done a good job with it.
Eric, how has the attendance been on your women's amateur fields?
It's been better than what we would see at a local women's amateur crit. We have roughly 40 women signed up across 4 categories right now. That's, to me, that's the greatest opportunity for growth. Again, they are, I don't know what it is. I've always struggled when I put on races, regardless of whether or not I do equal payout or equal race time. I've struggled to get women racers to show up and compete. And I hope it's not because they feel uncomfortable or outed by the cycling community. And if they do, hopefully this is a way that we can get them reinvested and excited about racing bikes and being a part of the community. Again, from the comfort of your own home, the ability to race up a category and down a category and have nothing to lose. And I really hope that esports is a way to grow women's cycling. And I actually think in a lot of ways, we've seen signings with 2020, I think they're 2024 now, not 2020 anymore, but signings to 2024 and to TIBCO based on performances in virtual racing, which is pretty amazing to see. So I think virtual racing offers a really unique platform specifically for women to step out of the shadows and be recognized for the elite performances they're really able to put out.
Have you seen much of a turnover, or this as an opportunity for some triathletes to jump into crit races and such?
Absolutely. We have a number of women that are participating in the professional league that do Ironman or multi-sport or endurance gravel and mountain bike or what have you. So typically totally different disciplines, but they come in and they use this and they're extremely successful. On the men's side, we have a Canadian professional triathlon team, group of 12 men that have signed up and are racing the full series with us, which is really cool. And I think you can see it that I don't want to poke at all, but they hold really high numbers. But as soon as you see those spikes in zone 4, zone 5, and take them out of their sweet spot zone, they struggle to hit that and then come back down and find their zone again.
Yeah.
But they'll get there, and it's really cool to have them be a part of the community and bring a different perspective to it all as well.
Your numbers actually match licensure. USAC has about 19 to 20% on average of female license holders. So if you're 200 plus with 40 women, that's
about right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Thanks for the verification that we're not
Sucking eggs.
Yeah.
That's good.
I'm curious what Zwift's gender parity is on their membership. I don't know if they share that.
Yeah, no, that would be really interesting to know. I mean, my wife has a Zwift membership, and she is not a USA Cycling member. She does duathlon and triathlon, so she carries a license there. Which is, I feel like we see more women in multi-sport than we do in cycling specific races.
Oh yeah.
Are the races time laps? How?
Yep, totally depends.
Okay.
Yep. So none of them will be time based. They'll either be laps based or distance based.
Okay.
So we tried to keep our crits, unless we were asked to do otherwise, to 55 minutes to an hour. And so we just try to figure out, okay, one of the things that we can do on our manager side of the app is we can host race predictors. And so we can go in and set these bots up and say, all right, the bots are going to race at normalized power of 330 watts for an hour. How long is that going to take them to do this 20 lap course? And so then we can say, nope, it needs to be a 25 lap course to get to 55 minutes, not 20 laps. So for the upcoming Gila Monster, we set a 1,000-watt bot to go do the Gila Monster road race, which is a 75K race, which Jack Brennan, I think he's just looking for different ways to kill people is what it really comes down to. But so he sent us the 75K course with 4,200 feet of climbing. We put a 1,000-watt bot out there, and it took the 1,000-watt bot about an hour and a half to do it. I'm like, Jack, we're not trying to get people to sit on their bikes for 5 hours, man. Like, we gotta modify this a little bit. So we did. But that's a neat feature from the virtual race promoter side of things, that we get to, we've got to customize jerseys in the game. We've got some custom bikes in the game, helmets. We get to build these courses. So there's a lot of fun things that I've got to learn along the way through this whole process.
Is there an equivalent of lap cards or time cards or something like that?
There is. Yep. So you get lap cards, and you also get your lap splits as well. So it'll tell you 4 to go, and then as you come through, it'll tell you your +3 seconds to the leader. So they did a nice job with those various features. On the road courses, we have a whole bunch of white space where we were able to sell, and we're still looking and growing, but marketing space. And so there's, your traditional roadside banners, there's road chalk that we can customize, there's billboards that we can customize, there's distance markers that we can customize. And so you'll get a distance marker every 5K, you'll get road chalk every 3K, you'll get roadside banners every 2K, you get a billboard every 5K. And so you get a arch that you ride through every 10K. So that's been pretty cool to be able to customize things to that level, and be able to go out to our industry partners and build partnerships with people again, like Saris or Hyperice or Argon Bikes or what have you.
Yeah. Eric, one last thing for me. Not to lose sight of your main mission, but are you also giving everybody the opportunity to donate somewhere to the Echelon cause?
Yeah. So one of the things that I didn't know how to do this, without being salesy or whatever, but I'm going to make an effort that as people register for races, to let them know where what they're supporting by just being present and being a part of it. But also remind them that they can make a donation to Project Echelon at our website, projectechelon.org. There is a link to it on the homepage of the Echelon Racing League. And you can donate to that as well. So yeah, like I said, we serviced over 200 veterans this year. It takes us about $300 per veteran that we work with to support them through our mentoring process and through our grants process. So yeah, every little bit helps. We will be putting a post out tomorrow for Giving Tuesday as well, and try to elicit some support that way.
That's awesome. Anybody else got any questions? Okay.
Well, thank you guys for your time and for the invite, and hopefully this was informative and gets people viewing esports and virtual racing in a different light, in a different way. I'll admit that I thought it was a bit laughable a year and a half ago. And then I started dabbling into it a little bit last winter, just to give myself, some opportunities to get VO2 efforts in without, putting myself in a mental hurt box. And then the pandemic came, and what was laughable turned into an opportunity. And now I realize the full potential that's there. And so hopefully people are able to come around to that in the same way that I was.
Great. Eric, thank you so much. Mike, thank you.
Yeah,
And
really looking forward to it.
everybody else, we'd appreciate it if you get the word out about the training races. A chance to, play on RGT a little bit and ride the Gateway Cup courses before the real event.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Eric and Mike.
Thanks.
See you guys. Have a good night.
And Mike.
I appreciate that.